Welcome to Zentara Unlocked, the official podcast of Zentara blog. In today's podcast, we cover what was Operation Mockingbird, what the conspiracy theorists think. History is full of real events and investigations that uncover surprising truths. Sometimes these truths get mixed up with ideas about secret plots and hidden control, what we call conspiracy theories. Operation Mockingbird is a fascinating example of a real historical investigation into government activity that also has a popular, but different, life as a widespread conspiracy theory. During the Cold War, a long period of tension and rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, both sides did many secret things to try and gain an advantage. Intelligence agencies were very active. Years later, investigations in the U.S. looked into some of these activities. And that's where the story of Operation Mockingbird really begins, both as a documented set of findings and as a much larger, often very different, theory. So, what was Operation Mockingbird according to historical investigations, and what do conspiracy theorists think it was? Let's look at 10 aspects to understand this complex topic, separating what was found from what is claimed. 1. The Cold War setting and secrecy. To understand the background of Operation Mockingbird, you need to know about the Cold War, roughly 1947 to 1991. This was a time when the United States and the Soviet Union were superpowers locked in a global competition of ideas, influence, and military strength, but without directly fighting a major hot war against each other. Both countries used propaganda, information designed to influence people, and secret operations to try and win allies and spread their ideas. This climate of intense rivalry and secrecy meant that intelligence agencies were given a lot of power to conduct covert activities, sometimes without much public oversight, which laid the groundwork for later questions about what they were doing. 2. Understanding the CIA's role. The Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, is the main U.S. government agency responsible for gathering intelligence, secret information about foreign governments, organizations, and individuals. During the Cold War, the CIA was also involved in covert operations, secret activities designed to influence events in other countries or within the U.S. itself without the U.S. government's role being known. These operations could range from influencing elections to spreading information or conducting propaganda. The intense pressure of the Cold War meant the CIA engaged in a wide variety of activities, some of which pushed the boundaries of what was considered acceptable, leading to later investigations into their methods and reach. 3. The allegation, CIA links to the media. Over time, questions began to arise about whether the CIA had used the media, newspapers, magazines, radio, and later television, to help with its Cold War efforts. The core allegation that would later be loosely referred to as Operation Mockingbird was that the CIA had connections with journalists and news organizations and might have used them to plant stories, spread propaganda, or gather information. This raised serious concerns because a free and independent media is considered essential in a democratic society to provide unbiased information to the public. The idea that a government intelligence agency might be secretly influencing the news was a significant worry. 4. The Church Committee investigation. The most important source for understanding the factual basis behind Operation Mockingbird was a major investigation conducted by the United States Senate in the 1970s. This was known as the Church Committee, led by Senator Frank Church. The committee was formed to look into allegations of abuse and illegal activities by U.S. intelligence agencies, including the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA. The Church Committee held hearings and reviewed thousands of documents to determine the extent of these activities and whether they had broken laws or violated civil liberties. It was this official investigation that publicly revealed some of the connections the CIA had maintained with individuals in the news media. 5. What the Church Committee actually found. The Church Committee's final report, published in 1976, did confirm that the CIA had relationships with a number of journalists and media organizations. The report stated that the CIA had used journalists for a variety of purposes, such as gathering intelligence, acting as intermediaries, or publishing CIA-provided information. The committee found that hundreds of journalists had provided information to the CIA. However, the report did not describe a single large organized program code-named Operation Mockingbird that centrally controlled a vast network of journalists for widespread propaganda. Instead, it described a pattern of individual relationships and various projects over time, where the CIA sought and received cooperation from people in the media. 6. The reality of documented connections. Based on the Church Committee report and declassified documents, the CIA's relationships with journalists were real, but were more complex and less centralized than later conspiracy theories would claim. Some journalists willingly cooperated, believing they were helping their country during the Cold War. Others might have been unaware they were interacting with a CIA operative. The CIA provided some journalists with information or help in exchange for intelligence or for placing stories. However, the investigation did not find evidence of a formal, vast network of journalists secretly controlled by the CIA to manipulate public opinion on a massive scale through a single, coordinated program. The connections were real, but the scale and nature were specific to the times and the CIA's intelligence gathering and limited propaganda needs. 7. The conspiracy theory version. This is where the historical findings diverge sharply from the popular conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theorists often describe Operation Mockingbird as a massive, highly organized, and ongoing government program that controls or heavily influences major news media outlets to spread propaganda, suppress truth, or even engage in mind control. In this version, the CIA or other government entities has a tight grip on mainstream media, using it to manipulate the public's beliefs and understanding of events. This theory often claims that journalists are secret agents following strict orders to push a specific agenda, and that major news stories are fabricated or heavily slanted as part of this program. This portrayal is much larger and more sinister than the documented findings of the Church Committee. 8. Why the conspiracy theory is different. The main difference between the historical findings and the conspiracy theory lies in scale, organization, and control. The Church Committee found evidence of numerous individual relationships and project-based cooperation between the CIA and journalists, not a single massive program called Mockingbird that controlled the media landscape. The conspiracy theory, however, describes a highly centralized, all-encompassing program with near-total control over major news organizations, manipulating public perception on a grand scale. The historical record, while showing concerning connections, does not support the idea of the vast monolithic mind control or propaganda machine described by the conspiracy theory. The theory significantly exaggerates the documented reality. 9. Why the theory persists. The Operation Mockingbird conspiracy theory persists for several reasons. The fact that the Church Committee did find real, concerning connections between the CIA and journalists provides a kernel of truth that the theory builds upon. Historical instances of government attempts to influence information also lend some plausibility. However, the theory also taps into a broader public distrust of both government institutions and the media. In an age of fragmented information and political polarization, it can be appealing to believe that there is a simple, hidden explanation, a secret program controlling the news for complex events or perceived bias in reporting. The idea of a powerful secret entity manipulating information is a common theme in many conspiracy theories. Set. Learning from history, checking sources. The story of Operation Mockingbird, both the documented findings and the conspiracy theory, highlights the importance of critical thinking and media literacy. It shows that governments have, in the past, attempted to influence information. It also shows how a documented event can be transformed into a much larger, unsubstantiated theory. Understanding this requires checking sources, looking for evidence, and distinguishing between credible investigative reports and speculative claims found online or elsewhere. Instead of accepting extraordinary claims without proof, it's crucial to rely on verified information from reliable sources to build an accurate understanding of historical events and current affairs. In conclusion, while the historical investigation by the Church Committee revealed concerning connections between the CIA and some journalists during the Cold War, often loosely linked to the name Mockingbird in later discussion, this was not the vast centralized media control program described in popular conspiracy theories. The theory significantly exaggerates the documented findings, fueled by distrust and the appeal of hidden explanations. Understanding this topic requires looking at the actual historical evidence and distinguishing it clearly from speculative claims. And that's a wrap for this episode of Zentara Unlocked. We hope you enjoyed it. But the journey doesn't end here. To see the visuals that accompany this discussion, read the full article at your own pace, and discover our curated list of books for further reading with links to easily find them, head straight over to zentara.blog. That's ZENTARA.blog. While you're there, explore the other 5 new articles we published today, and check out our weekly ebooks compiling our most popular topics. Don't forget to subscribe to Zentara Unlocked so you don't miss any of our 6 daily episodes. Thanks for listening, and keep that curiosity alive.